Have you ever stood frozen in a moment of public humiliation, unsure how to react? Ever felt the sting of someone mocking you in front of a crowd, making you the punchline of their ego-driven show? And what if the real power isn't in striking back but in saying nothing at all? Picture this. You're surrounded by familiar faces, friends, acquaintances, maybe even people you once trusted. Then, out of nowhere, someone crosses the line. Maybe they insult you. Maybe they mock you just to get a laugh. Maybe they make you feel invisible, powerless, small. But here's the secret they'll never reveal. You don't need to retaliate to reclaim your pride. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. The truth is sometimes the most powerful clap back is no clap at all. Instead, it's choosing to rise, quietly, relentlessly, so gracefully that one day, they'll look back and wish they had never underestimated you. In this video, I'm going to share with you raw, unfiltered ways to reclaim your self-respect after being humiliated. This isn't about fake positivity. It's not about pleasing others or pretending to be the bigger person. It's about cultivating a mindset so solid, so unshakable, that your growth becomes your loudest revenge. Because when someone tries to destroy your dignity in public, your silence, your transformation, and your comeback will echo louder than any insult they ever hurled. Let's get into it. Oh, and if you're someone who finds meaning in stoicism, real self-mastery, and learning how to navigate life with emotional clarity and resilience, you'll love my free Sunday newsletter. Every week, I share deep truths, unconventional insights, and tactical life wisdom straight to your inbox. Just click the link below and become part of something deeper. And to any brands watching, if you want to partner with authentic, purpose-driven content and connect with a highly engaged community, my email's in the description. Let's build something that leaves an impact. Now, let's talk about the first lesson, one that changed me forever. Let your success slap them in the face. Let me take you back. It wasn't a formal event, just a small get-together, friends, familiar faces, casual conversation. I made a tiny verbal slip, one of those harmless moments we've all had. But then came him, you know the type. Loud, over the top, a master of sarcasm, fueled by attention. He latched onto my mistake like it was his spotlight. He turned it into a joke, a performance, the kind of cruelty masked as humor. And everyone laughed, not because it was clever, but because it's easier to laugh with the pack than risk becoming the next target. I didn't speak, not because I had no words, but because I chose stillness. I understood something in that moment. Any reaction would feed the fire. He wanted my energy, my anger, my pride. I gave him nothing, just a quiet nod, like I was in on the joke. But in my mind, I wasn't laughing. I was making a promise. You can have this moment, but I'll take the stage later. That night marked a turning point. I disappeared. No updates, no noise. I stopped trying to prove myself with words. I started proving everything with action. I woke up earlier, trained harder, read more, tackled the habits I had let slide, cut out distractions and cut out people who had laughed. I began investing in myself like my pride depended on it, because it did. This wasn't about petty revenge. This was redemption. Every step I took, I imagined their faces. The ones that mocked, the ones that watched. I imagined them seeing me not broken, but unbreakable. Not bitter, but better. Not a punchline, but a story of comeback. And that story, it's just beginning. In the next part, we'll explore exactly how to rebuild your inner power, piece by piece, and use every wound as fuel to become untouchable. Ready? We left off at a turning point, the moment your silence becomes louder than any insult. The moment your transformation begins to speak volumes without uttering a word. I saw it in my mind like a movie scene. 6 months had gone by. I wasn't the same person anymore. I was sharper, stronger, more grounded. There was clarity in my focus, power in my habits, and peace in my silence. I had built a version of myself I barely recognized in the best way possible. Then it happened. My phone lit up with a DM. Guess who it was? Yep, the same guy who humiliated me in front of everyone. But this time, he wasn't mocking me. He wasn't laughing. He was asking, "How did you grow your brand so fast? How do you stay so disciplined? What's your secret?" And in that moment, I felt that I'd already won. Not because I replied, not because I gave him advice, but because I didn't need to. I had no interest in clapping back. My results had done that for me. That's the uncomfortable truth no one tells you. Insults are loud, but they fade. Achievements, they echo. A comeback built on results, not revenge, hits harder than any words ever could. It's quiet. It's surgical. It's permanent. When someone disrespects you in public, what they really want is your reaction. Don't give it to them. Give them something better, a version of you they can't touch. Let them watch from a distance as you rise calm, unstoppable, untouchable. Let your glow make their darkness uncomfortable. Let your focus highlight their chaos. Let your discipline magnify their laziness. Let your silence reflect their insecurity like a mirror they can't look away from. And here's what stings the most. When you grow and they stay the same, you become their reminder that they failed to evolve. So no, don't seek revenge. Don't fight for approval. Don't waste your breath defending your name to people who were never worthy of it. Rebuild so fiercely that their insult becomes just the first line in your origin story. Let your success slap them in the face without ever lifting a hand. Now let's move to the second truth, one that few people talk about, but it's brutally effective. Publicly ignore them. There are few power moves more devastating than acting like someone doesn't exist, especially when they crave your attention. Let's be real. When someone humiliates you in front of others, it's not just rudeness, it's a strategy, a power play. They feed off your discomfort, your anger. Your emotional reaction is their fuel. But here's how you flip that script. You don't flinch. You don't argue. You don't even look their way. You make them invisible. Let me tell you a story. There was a guy I used to hang around with, arrogant, smug, the kind who always needed to be the loudest in the room. He loved calling people out just to feel big. One day, he crossed a line. He joked about something I had told him in confidence in front of everyone. They laughed. I didn't. I just stared at him. No anger, no defense, no response. A blank expression, like his words passed straight through me. And from that day forward, he was cut off. No nods, no eye contact, no small talk, just silence. A cold, undeniable void. Months passed. I stayed on my grind. Grew stronger, sharper, quieter. People began noticing the shift, not just in my presence, but in my energy. I had boundaries now, standards. I wasn't playing social games anymore. Then one day, at a gathering, he came up to me, in front of others, smiling like nothing happened. "Hey, bro, we good now?" I looked at him, didn't say a word. Just walked past him. No smirk, no glare. Just silence. In that moment, he shrank, not because I humiliated him, but because I didn't need to. I kept my power, and he realized he had lost his. You see, people love to say, be the bigger person. But being the bigger person doesn't mean making yourself available to people who disrespected you. Sometimes, being the bigger person means disappearing from their world completely. And we're not done yet. In the next part, I'll show you exactly how to master the art of self-respect and use boundaries, not bitterness, to take back control of your life. Last time, we talked about the power of silence, how publicly ignoring someone who disrespected you can speak louder than any clever comeback. Now, let's take that truth one step further. Knowing your worth means choosing who no longer deserves access to you. It's that simple. You don't owe forgiveness to someone who trampled your dignity. And just because silence is uncomfortable doesn't mean you have to fill it with fake kindness. You see, true maturity isn't about smiling politely at people who've wronged you. It's about control. Control over your space. Control over your energy. Control over who gets your attention and who doesn't. Here's why ignoring someone publicly works so well. It starves their ego. They came expecting drama, expecting a show, expecting you to react. Instead, you give them nothing, and that is what shakes people. People expect noise when things go down, but when you respond with silence, it flips the entire power dynamic. Suddenly, the person who thought they embarrassed you is left standing awkwardly in front of a crowd, invisible to the one person they tried so hard to hurt. You don't have to shout. You don't have to insult. You don't even have to explain. Your silence is a statement. You no longer matter here. And believe me, nothing cuts deeper than being made irrelevant. It's earned through boundaries, through choosing not to acknowledge people who've shown they're unworthy of your time. That's how kings operate. That's how real bosses move. They don't argue. They don't chase closure. They don't beg to be understood. They exclude. So when someone publicly disrespects you and then casually tries to slide back into your life like nothing happened, don't meet them halfway. Don't fake the smile. Don't play nice for appearances. Let them walk into a room full of people and feel the absence of your attention. Let your silence echo louder than any insult ever could. Let them realize, in front of everyone, that they're no longer part of your circle, that they've been demoted from someone you once knew to a stranger. And you know what? Everyone watching will respect you even more. Not because you delivered a clever line, but because you delivered nothing at all. Now let's talk about the third principle, one that separates real power from performance. Speak once and never again. Say what you need to say clearly, calmly, and with complete control. Then shut the door. Let your words echo while you walk away. Here's a truth most people don't like to admit. The moment you start over-explaining yourself to someone who has already disrespected you, you've already lost. Because they're not seeking clarity, they're seeking control. They want you chasing their approval. They want you desperate to be understood. They want you to feel like your value depends on their permission. But when you speak once without anger, without begging, and then never again, you shake the entire room. Let me tell you a moment I'll never forget. Years ago, I worked with someone who thought he ran the show, charming on the surface, but manipulative behind the scenes. During a team meeting, in front of everyone, he made a direct, cutting comment at my expense. It wasn't just uncalled for, it was calculated. He wanted to humiliate me. The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at me. I said one line, cold, controlled. Director, if you really believe that, then I've clearly overestimated your integrity. That was it. No raised voice, no emotional defense, just truth. Then I leaned back, folded my arms, let the silence do the talking. He tried to laugh it off, tried to explain, tried to shift the blame, but the damage was done. I never brought it up again, never confronted him. Never gave him a single ounce of energy after that day. And guess what? That moment stuck. Not because of what he said, but because of how I responded, or didn't. Here's why speaking once and never again is so powerful. It makes your words unforgettable. People are used to noise. They expect defensiveness. They expect chaos. But one cold, controlled truth delivered once, and then silence, that lingers. And in the next part, I'll break down how to use your voice as a weapon without ever raising your tone. Ready for what comes next? Previously, we explored the power of speaking once with clarity, confidence, and finality. When you do that, you stop reacting and start commanding. Now let's dive deeper into why that one response can carry more weight than 1,000 explanations. When you speak only once, it lands like a hammer. It's not the beginning of a debate, it's the end of one. It's not an opening for discussion, it's a declaration. First, speaking once turns your words into a statement, not a negotiation. It says, "This is my truth. You can sit with it or not," and that firmness, it resonates. Second, it radiates unshakable confidence. When you don't feel the urge to defend yourself repeatedly, when you don't chase validation or bend to be understood, the message becomes crystal clear. You know exactly who you are, and more importantly, you don't need to prove it to anyone. Third, it puts the spotlight back on the other person. When you stop responding, they start unraveling. They begin to push harder, to claw for control, to spin narratives because their ego can't handle your indifference. And you're already 10 steps ahead. You've said what needed to be said. You've closed the door and you're walking away. Here's a controversial truth that most people struggle to accept. You don't owe your truth to people who twisted it the first time. You don't owe them clarifications. You don't owe them context. You don't owe them your voice. What you owe is yourself, your peace, your energy, your dignity. So let them talk. Let them misinterpret. Let them fill in the blanks however they want. Because the people who deserved your energy would never have tried to embarrass you in the first place. Here's exactly what you do. Say it once, not in anger but in power. Be sharp. Be clear, not emotional, not petty. Then leave them behind. Your silence, that's not retreat. That's your armor. That's the signal that the game they're playing, you're no longer part of it. And trust me, nothing haunts a disrespectful person more than knowing they no longer have access to your attention. You know what weak people do? They send long emotional texts, trying to explain themselves to someone who isn't even listening. They post cryptic statuses online, begging for validation. They whisper to mutual friends, hoping someone will clear things up. But strong people, they say one line and let the world figure it out on their own. That's not arrogance, that's self-respect. You're not just protecting your peace, you're commanding it. So next time someone calls you out publicly, tries to tear down your name or question your integrity, don't bark, don't beg, don't overshare. Say your truth once with backbone, with fire, then let them sink into the noise they created. Because real strength, it doesn't shout, it doesn't argue. Real strength speaks once and never again. Now, let's move to the fourth and final move. One that can disarm a room and dismantle an ego in a single stroke. Use humor as a dagger. Let's be clear, when someone humiliates you in front of others, the worst thing you can do is get emotional. That's what they're counting on. They want you to crumble. They want to watch you squirm. That's where they get their power. But there's one response that flips the whole dynamic instantly. A calm, cutting joke. Not a joke to entertain, not a joke to make peace, but a joke that slices beneath the surface, dances just under their ego, and leaves a scar before they even know they've been wounded. Let me give you a real story. I was in a small meeting, just 10 people, and one of those loud, overconfident types, you know, the kind decides it's his moment. He looks at me and says, in front of everyone, honestly, I'm just not sure you really understand what the client is asking for. Now, let's be real. That's not a question. That's a slap dressed as curiosity. He wanted laughs. He wanted eyes. He wanted me to trip. A younger version of me might have launched into a full explanation. Might have tried to justify myself, prove my expertise, but not this time. I paused. I took a breath. Then I locked eyes with him, smiled, and said, "You're absolutely right. Let's all slow down to your pace." The room froze, a few awkward chuckles. One person even looked away, and he didn't know whether to laugh or feel insulted. That's the beauty of it, because when done right, humor doesn't just deflect the insult, it flips the power, it leaves them speechless, and it reminds the entire room you're in control. In the next part, I'll show you how to master this technique, how to sharpen humor into your most strategic weapon, without ever crossing the line. Ready to laugh and cut deep. Previously, we talked about using humor like a dagger, cutting clean, sharp, and effortless. Now let's talk about what happens after the moment when the room is silent, the jab has landed, and you walk away without a scratch. I didn't follow up. I didn't explain myself. I didn't even glance back. I simply continued with the meeting, cool and collected, like I had just brushed a piece of lint off my shoulder. No tension, no drama, just control. And that guy, he didn't say another word. Not because I yelled, not because I dominated, but because I made one thing absolutely clear. I am not the one to play with. This is why humor works better than rage when you're disrespected in public. Let's break it down. First, it confuses the enemy. They expect anger. They're ready for a meltdown. They feed off the chaos of your emotional reaction. But when you smile, stay calm, and deliver a sharp, clever response that stings without raising your voice, they're thrown off. They don't know how to recover. And better yet, they don't know what's coming next. Second, it turns the room in your favor. People respect composure. They admire confidence. But what really earns their loyalty is when you take disrespect and make it look ridiculous. A well-timed joke flips the entire energy of the space. You don't need to say, "I'm in control." They feel it. The crowd shifts, maybe with laughs, maybe with silence, but either way, they're with you now. Third, it makes you unforgettable. Anger fades. Long-winded rants are forgotten. But a savage one-liner that sticks, people remember it. They replay it. They quote it. And deep down, even the one who got cut by it feels it echoing in their head long after everyone else moved on. So here are a few lines to keep in your back pocket for moments like these. That was a bold take. Wrong, but bold. You clearly misunderstood me, but I admire your confidence in staying wrong. I'd argue with you, but I like to win. I love how you said that like it made sense. You don't need to hit hard. You just need to aim well. Because here's the real truth. Most people who humiliate others in public are insecure. They crave dominance. They want to look powerful. But nothing breaks that illusion faster than someone who can laugh during the attack, smirk, respond, and make them look like the joke they tried to create. Let's get a little controversial because most people won't say this out loud. You will not gain respect after humiliation by being soft. You won't earn it by pleading, by explaining, or by breaking down in front of the crowd. You earn it by rising with fire behind your eyes and a smirk on your face, by hitting back with subtlety, with precision, with composure, by making them look like a clown effortlessly. Respect doesn't come when you say, "Please understand me." It comes when people say, "Damn, did you hear what she said back?" He shut it down without even blinking. That's when they realize you're not just calm, you're dangerous. In a world that thrives on ego, fear, and loud voices, real strength is silent, surgical, and unforgettable. The sharpest blade doesn't shout. It glides through with a smile. So next time someone tries to humiliate you, don't explode. Don't fold. Jab. Smile. Walk away. Let them laugh with the room while bleeding on the inside. And now it's time to talk about something even more important. Cutting off the people who laughed with them. Let's get brutally honest for a second. When someone humiliates you publicly, the first person you focus on is the one who threw the shot. But the second, it's the ones who laughed, the ones who smirked, the ones who stayed quiet even though they knew you. They chose comfort over character, and that's silence. That's betrayal, because disrespect from an enemy, you expect that. But betrayal from someone who called you bro, sis, friend, that hits differently. It cuts deeper. Let me take you back for a second. Back in college, I had someone I considered a friend, at least I thought so. One day, in front of a crowded room, he cracked a loud joke about my financial situation, said it with a smile, like it was no big deal. He always had that class clown energy. People were used to him being loud. So of course, they laughed. But what I noticed more than his voice, the people who laughed with him. And in the next section, I'll tell you exactly how I handled that moment and why your real power lies not just in how you respond to the enemy, but in how you deal with the ones who stood and watched. In the last part, we uncovered a harsh truth. When someone humiliates you, it's not just their words that hurt. It's the laughter from those you thought were standing with you. That betrayal, it stays with you longer than the joke ever could. But what stung me most that day wasn't the guy who made the joke. It was the 3 others sitting right next to me who laughed along with him. The same people I'd shared meals with, pulled all-nighters studying with, defended when others gossiped behind their backs. And there they were, laughing, not out of surprise, not out of shock, but laughing like it was entertainment, like my dignity was a punchline. I didn't say a word that day, but I took mental notes, sharp ones. From that moment on I was done. No more group chats, no more fake catch-ups, no more pretending we were something we weren't. I cut them off clean, cold, and without a single announcement. And guess what? Not one of them came back to ask why. Because deep down they knew they laughed when they shouldn't have. They knew they chose sides. And silence, that was their confession. Here's the truth that too many people ignore. Silence is a choice. So is laughter. So is betrayal. That's why when someone humiliates you and others laugh with them, you must cut those people off. Here's why. 1. They reveal their true allegiance. People don't laugh at someone they respect. If they laughed while you were being mocked, they enjoyed it. Even if they say, "Oh, it was just a joke," or "I didn't mean anything by it," don't be fooled. Laughter is agreement in disguise. 2. Keeping them around sends the wrong message. It tells them your boundaries are flexible. It tells them they can cross the line again and you let it slide. That doesn't earn respect. That shows weakness. And let's be honest, you don't gain power by entertaining people who clapped when you fell. 3. Your presence is valuable, so treat it that way. If you want people to respect you, show them your time, your energy, your friendship. It's earned. You don't tolerate subtle betrayal. You're not desperate for connection. You're not needy for approval. If someone can't stand beside you in your low moments, they don't deserve to stand with you when you rise. Now, let's talk about what happens if you don't cut them off. Little by little, your power drains. They joke again, maybe softer this time. They whisper behind your back. They use your kindness as fuel to feel better about themselves. And worst of all, you start to believe you deserve it. So let me say something that might sound harsh but needs to be said. If you tolerate snakes, don't be surprised when they bite. You don't need to start a war. You don't need to write a speech. You don't need a big closure moment. You just stop. Stop replying. Stop inviting. Stop trusting. That's it. Here's something no one talks about. When you're humiliated, people watch. They're taking notes. If they see you forgive too quickly, especially the wrong people, you get labeled. Easy to disrespect, easy to manipulate. But if they see you cut ties cleanly, if they see you elevate without bitterness, if they see you enforce your standards without saying a word, you become something else entirely. A threat, a presence, a person who doesn't just speak about respect, they live it. So the next time someone tries to humiliate you in public, don't just listen to what's being said. Look around. Who laughed? Who smirked? Who stayed silent when they could have said something? Those people aren't your friends. They're just waiting for their turn to laugh at you again. When respect is lost, distance is the only cure. Cut them off quietly, permanently. No warnings, no announcements, and watch how your life gets lighter. Watch how your circle gets smaller but stronger. Now, let's take it one step further, because cutting people off is only part of the solution. Next, I'll show you how to make them regret ever picking on you, not with rage, but with results. In the last part, we talked about the strength it takes to walk away from those who laughed with your enemies. Now let's flip the script, because walking away is only the beginning. The real power is in the comeback they never saw coming. You want to make them regret ever thinking you were the soft one, but not with rage, not with revenge, with transformation. Let me tell you a story, a real one. It was my very first job. Fresh out of school, eager to prove myself, excited to bring ideas to the table. But my manager, he had other plans. Every time I opened my mouth in meetings, he cut me off, laughed at my ideas, interrupted me mid-sentence, dismissed me like I was a kid in the wrong room. And then came the moment I'll never forget. He looked around the table, smirked, and said, "Let's leave the real decisions to the people who actually know what they're doing." The room erupted with awkward laughter. And me? I sat there still, feeling like my chest was on fire. But I didn't flinch. I didn't snap. I didn't even blink. I said nothing. But I made a promise to myself in that moment. You're going to eat those words. And when you do, I won't need to say a single one. So I went quiet, not submissive, strategic. I stopped trying to impress anyone. I focused. I learned like a madman. I took on the clients no one wanted, the projects everyone avoided. I stayed late, not for him, for me. 3 months later, I closed a deal that literally saved the company's quarter. It wasn't just a win, it was the win. And guess who had to stand in front of the entire team and give me credit? Him. He couldn't even look me in the eye. He handed me the mic with trembling hands, because deep down, he knew he gave the spotlight to the wrong person that day. So how do you make them regret ever picking on you? 1. Become the person they swore you'd never be. The fastest way to shut down a critic is not with a comeback, it's with proof. They called you dumb? Outlearn them. They mocked your ideas. Outbuild them. They laughed at your dreams. Outlive them. Let their insults become your ignition switch. Let their doubt become your discipline. 2. Build in silence. Return in power. Don't broadcast your comeback. Don't overshare your growth. That's just noise. Move in shadows. Train in private. Show results, not promises. Because by the time they realize how far you've come, it'll be too late for them to undo the damage they did. 3. Don't block them. Let them watch. The best revenge isn't served cold. It's served on a screen. Let them scroll through your wins. Let them hear your name spoken with respect. Let them feel that pit in their stomach when someone says, "You know them, right? They're killing it now." Let your success become their personal punishment. And let's make this uncomfortable for a second, because most people won't say it. Forgive, sure, but forget, never. Why? Because pain has a memory, and when used correctly, it doesn't become trauma, it becomes fuel. They picked on you when you were unsure, unpolished, vulnerable. Let them live with the image of who you've become: powerful, polished, untouchable. You don't need to humiliate them back. You don't need a big confrontation. The regret they feel watching you rise is the loudest silence you'll ever give them. Here's the cold truth. No one regrets picking on the person who fades away, but they always regret underestimating the one who returns calm, focused, unrecognizable, and commanding every eye in the room without even trying. That is the version of you they never saw coming, and when they do, it'll be too late. Now that you're on the rise, there's only one thing left to do: protect it. Next, let's talk about the one habit that will keep your power, your peace, and your dignity intact: standing on your standards. In the last part, we talked about turning pain into power, how rising silently and relentlessly is the ultimate response. But once you rise, There's one thing that keeps you there, your standards. Let's get one thing absolutely clear. When someone humiliates you publicly, they're not just being disrespectful. They're running a test. How much can I get away with before this person pushes back? They want to know how far they can go, how much you'll tolerate, how little you value yourself. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Your reaction is your answer. Not just to them but to everyone watching. This is where your standards come into play. Not the ones you say. You have the ones you actually enforce. The invisible lines that quietly declare, this is what I accept. This is what I don't. And if you cross it, you're done. No discussion needed. Let me tell you a personal story. I had a friend, someone I'd known for years. He had a habit of making jokes that weren't really jokes. They were insults, dressed in humor, wrapped in a smile. He'd take shots at my appearance, mock my family, poke at my relationships, and every time I called him out, he'd say the same thing. Relax, I'm just kidding. But one day, he crossed a line in front of a group of people. He joked about something deeply personal, something I had only told him in confidence. People laughed. I didn't. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Rye, that's the last time you'll ever speak to me like that." He laughed, thought I was bluffing. He wasn't used to boundaries. But I wasn't bluffing. I didn't yell. I didn't explain. I didn't argue. I simply cut the cord. No more texts. No calls. No interaction. Done. And guess what happened? Within a few weeks, the same people who used to laugh along with him started drifting toward me. Because when you have standards, you don't become universally liked. You become respected. You become magnetic, not because you chase approval, but because people feel the gravity of someone who truly respects themselves. Let's break this down clearly. 1. Standards are not just rules. They are boundaries with consequences. Anyone can say they have boundaries, but without consequences. Those lines are just suggestions. If someone crosses your line once and you do nothing, they'll cross it again. With confidence, your boundaries should feel like concrete. Step out of line, you hit a wall. No warnings, no softness, just truth. 2. People will test you just to see if you're bluffing. Some will tease you, push you, disrespect you on purpose, not because they dislike you, but because they want to see if your standards are real or just noise. And if you fold, you've taught them you're not serious about yourself. But if you stand firm, you've just earned one of two things: their respect or their distance. Either way you win. 3. Yes, you will lose people, but you'll gain power. Let's be honest. Enforcing your standards makes people uncomfortable. Some will walk away. Let them. Because when you raise your standards, the ones who can't reach them naturally fall off. They'll say things like, "You've changed. You think you're better than us now." And you know what? They're right. Growth does look like arrogance to people who've settled for less, and people who lack boundaries will always label your confidence as attitude. Now here's the controversial truth. Most people don't have real standards. What they have is a desire to be liked. So they tolerate mockery. They endure subtle disrespect. They smile through the pain to avoid conflict. That's not humility. That's self-abandonment. But the moment you finally stand tall on your standards, everything shifts. People begin adjusting how they speak to you, not because you demanded respect, but because you commanded it. With how you move, with how you speak, with how you respond. So here's how to do it practically. Someone disrespects you once. You address it once clearly and calmly. If they do it again, you walk away. No drama. No speeches, just action. And now that we've talked about protecting your self-worth, there's one final piece to becoming truly untouchable. Next, we'll explore the mindset that will keep you elevated long after the noise has faded. In the last part, we learned that real power comes from standing firm on your standards. And now, Here's the next truth. Once those boundaries are in place, protect them with quiet, unshakable conviction. No debate, no drama, just distance. And most importantly, never lower your standards just to keep someone who makes you feel small. Because every time you shrink yourself to make someone else comfortable, you send a message that you'll tolerate being disrespected just to be accepted. Standards aren't just about what you say, they're how you teach the world to treat you. If someone humiliates you and you let it slide, you've trained them to do it again. But if you draw a clear line and stick to it with consistency, you've created a boundary they can't ignore, even if they try to laugh it off. That's how you get respect, not by shouting, not by clapping back with clever insults, but by standing tall on values that do not waver, even when the whole room is laughing at you. They thought it was a joke, until you became the lesson. Here's the truth most people miss. You don't gain real respect by reacting in the moment of humiliation. You gain it by transforming when they least expect it. So let them laugh, let them mock, let them whisper behind your back like high school kids with nothing better to do, while they're stuck on repeat, cycling through the same shallow behavior. You're evolving in silence. You're rising slowly, intentionally, with purpose, and by the time they finally notice what you've become, you'll be untouchable, not because you were louder than them, but because you became something they can't shake. See, the world is full of people who will push your boundaries just to find out, do you love yourself enough to defend them? So answer without speaking. Show them you don't need to argue to prove your worth. Show them your light doesn't dim just because someone tried to cast a shadow over it. Show them that what they meant for harm, you turned into momentum. Because here's what no one will ever admit out loud. The strongest revenge isn't making them feel bad. It's becoming someone they have no choice but to respect, even if they never say it, even if they still don't like you. That respect, it lingers in silence. So next time someone tries to humiliate you, smile, say nothing, and get to work. You don't need applause. You don't need attention. What you need is silence and a storm building behind it. And when you finally speak again, it won't be words. It'll be results. And now that you've mastered restraint, standards, and silent strength, there's one last piece to becoming unstoppable. Let's talk about the energy that keeps you rising, even when the world tries to pull you down. Discipline.